Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. I wanted to tell you about my Music Production Club. The Music Production Club is a monthly subscription service that gets you all of my latest work directly to your inbox. Whatever it is I'm coming out with next, whether it's Ableton Live packs, tutorials, sample packs, you'll be the first one to get it. And your membership also comes with a whole collection of other Ableton Live packs. You've got video courses. You've got my What Bob Ross Teaches Us About Music Production book. You'll also get access to our MPC Live classes, which are Zoom meetings where I usually teach some sort of lesson, answer some questions, and sometimes there are special guests. There's also the Music Production Club Discord server where you can hang out and meet with like-minded producers, share songs, samples, tools, tricks. That's the Music Production Club. It's a little bit like a Patreon. If you want to support what I'm doing over here, join the club. It helps out a lot and it keeps things like this episode of the podcast coming to you. Check it out at brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Jake Lizzio of Signal Music Studio. I'm really happy to have Jake here today. I've discovered his channel on YouTube about a year ago during the lockdown. And as a guitar player, it's sort of like a dream come true to find just such a great teacher like Jake. I can honestly tell you, Jake, you are one of my favorite channels on all of YouTube. And there's a lot of them out there. I really love what you're doing.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, you do
and there's
great
a lot
work
to choose from. So.
Yeah, there is. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. And you've really done a great job in just clarifying for me even just like some things that I've learned throughout the years of playing music, playing guitar, taking lessons. I would especially say like the modes of major, you know, all of those.
That's a big one, yeah.
And it's like stuff I've played around with and used, but I never quite... The way you did it, the way you explained it and put it out there was just like so helpful. I even bought your poster. It's hanging up, the modes of major.
Woo,
I would recommend anyone that's has any interest in music theory, you know, it's just so useful to just have it there. You're doing awesome work, and I'm really happy that you're taking the time to talk today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know, I've noticed in my experience, the big traditional classic problem that I run into with students is they've studied, they've done the work, they've gone and explored, they've tried to learn this and that, but they've gotten like most of the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's just a few pieces. There's a few really difficult pieces that just need to be put in, and then all the entire picture is visible to them. And when I've worked with hundreds of students individually, probably 1,000 or plus individually, and you see the same problems. You've seen that they all are missing that same piece. So when I decided to start making videos, it was obvious to focus on those pieces that I thought were universally missing. This is the constant. This is the one constant that everybody gets hold up on, that trips everybody up. So let's really focus on that. And just having the experience of real life students made my videos more effective because you know what traditionally confuses people. You know what is traditionally, you know, holding people back. So let's just talk about that. Let's not talk about the thing you've heard 1,000 times from 1,000 other videos. Let's talk about the one thing that everybody else is not talking about that might be where you're confused at.
Yeah, well, having that real life experience, you know, it clears it up real fast. And
right. Without teaching in person, I would have never been able to start a YouTube channel. I don't know how anybody's supposed to start teaching to the masses without just teaching one-on-one. I mean, it was a direct transition, an evolution, teaching one-on-one with people and then teaching group classes and then finally starting a YouTube channel and just expanding it. But pretty much everything I'm teaching on YouTube is a rehash of my one-on-one lessons in some form, just dressed up, you know, with a lot of editing and tricks and stuff like that. Nice. Bells and whistles.
I've found when I have to teach things, that's when I have to like actually really understand it. And it just it puts everything in focus so well because you really have to condense what you know into something that's digestible and understandable.
I've had to stop making video lessons for YouTube because I realized halfway through that I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I thought I knew this topic. It was comfortable in my mind, but now that I'm trying to explain it, because, you know, the luxury I have now as a YouTuber is I get to teach topics that my students weren't into. You know, I'm into really weird stuff. Not all my students were into that. Now I can just be like, well, let's do it because somebody's going to like it. You know, on YouTube, somebody's going to like it. So, you know, I take on all these interesting challenges and stuff like that take me into sectors that I would have never taught before. And then I realize halfway through, oh God, I'm not prepared for this at all. I should not be teaching this. Let's just stop. Let's go back to something I'm comfortable with. And that is still a growing process, right? So it means that I'm still learning as a teacher. Hopefully, if you're a teacher, you're not done learning. Hopefully, you're still pursuing more things to learn so you can teach more things. But I found myself in that spot more than once.
Yeah, well, I think as the teacher, whether it's my high school English teaching or music teaching, I always kind of feel like I'm the one that learns the most.
Yeah. I think good teachers do.
Yeah.
And there's also, come on, who wants to be wrong on the internet? Like, I'm putting stuff out there for like, I'm Jake and I know all this stuff about music. If I'm wrong, I mean, that's just not good, And, you're allowed to be wrong in your daily life, but when you're presenting yourself as somewhat of an authority and as somewhat as an educational figure, I really try my best to talk about things I know what I'm talking about, which is why you don't hear me talking a lot about jazz, for example. You won't find a single video on my channel about jazz because I just don't know what I'm talking about, and I shouldn't be talking about that stuff. So, talk to Jens Larson about something like that. He's the guy I go to. Or obviously Adam Neely.
I think music theory is one of those topics too that really brings out people that go, I don't think so. That's really C flat, not B. And they get very technical on that particular topic.
Those people like to talk about music, but they don't. There's a difference between. They like discussing music, but not actually writing music. There's that brand of music theorist who's just way into the rules and the traditions, but doesn't actually spend a lot of time writing. And I don't care about those people that argue about the C flats and the, B double sharps. And I mean, you should know those rules, but if I simplify something to not include some enharmonic nonsense, and if you call me out on it where I'm clearly simplifying, like, you're just being a bad teacher. You're trying to make it more confusing and more mysterious and more complex when we could just make it simple. We could keep it simple and eschew a few arcane rules, and that's fine with me. So,
well, that's a good call because all of this stuff goes crazy deep. You think you learn something only to find out that there's so much more you didn't even know existed.
Precisely.
So, to get into some of those technicalities can be really off-putting, I think. So it's a smart move to sometimes just call it a B.
Yeah, exactly. And I get called out for it, but I'm at the point now where I know when I'm going to get called out for it. So I'll usually make a little annotation, like in the video in text, where like, oh, all right, you nerd, you absolute insufferable music geek, all right? Here's the deal. And I'll put like a little asterisk that says, technically it should be spelt, A sharp, but I've called it B flat. And that usually sates, that tiny percent of people. But it's important, it's important to present the information without typos. But there's always a mistake in my video. I'll promise you that. I'll call it an Easter egg. Let's pretend I put it in there intentionally. But there's always something in there that's like a missed flat or sign or something, and I have to pin it, and I have to let everybody know there was supposed to be a flat here.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you can turn those into little lessons too. I had something happen to me today actually in my English classes where I was presenting something with their research papers, and I did a copy and paste that didn't preserve the italicization of the font. So,
yes.
So I saw it, and before anyone noticed, I said, "Is there anything wrong with this? Is this the proper format?" But that's something you can do in person, live on the fly. If I had put that video out, it's out, and there's no me popping in there changing things.
I also get to edit my video. I get to watch it multiple times and, make sure that nothing is goofy with it. But I do encounter that same thing that most producers encounter where you become like numb to the mix, It happens with my videos where my brain just turns off. I could have the most blatant error, most obvious error, and I won't notice it because I've seen the error 16 times, now 17 times, and it feels normal to me. So I think that goes into music production. We have that same issue sometimes where something is wrong, but I've heard it wrong 17 times now, and I'm used to it, and it takes a new, fresh, set of ears to come into the room and be like, what's with that crash cymbal? It sounds like it's off the beat, and then you realize, oh, it is off the beat. Why? And I don't like it now that I was just used to it, and I wasn't noticing it. So that's a psychological thing that I did notice from mixing, and so much of the lessons I learned from mixing and music ended up just paying off in video production. It's incredible how much I learned from music and production that just is like, oh, this is just making videos now. It's the same thing.
Well, that kind of thinking, there's some sort of like inside out version of that. Like when you're playing live, if you hit a weird note, it's a mistake once, but 2 times, 3 times, then it sounds intentional, or I think the joke is...
Now it's jazz.
Now it's jazz, right?
Yeah.
And I think that does happen because you're listening to the same thing over and over again. That's like the curse of the music producer. You don't ever get to hear your music for the first time.
Right. It's one of the many curses, and I think it's one of the curses that I feel like you can wear away at it. I feel like once you're aware of it, that you're becoming accustomed to your music too easily and too quickly. I think it's a little easier to remedy that and say, okay, I'm going to give myself a break from this song so I can come back to it with fresh ears. I think it's a little easier to just make yourself be more critical, and say, okay, I have a tendency to like my stuff too much, so I'm going to be overly critical because I'm not catching those mistakes. So it's a curse, but I feel like it's one of the better curses. Like it's one of the easier curses I'd have thrown at me. I still do wish like I would have the wonder of listening to your song for the first time. Like what is that like to have never heard a song you've written and to hear it as a listener? I still wish I could do that with some of my pieces, because they've been completely tainted with my own judgments and my own history of them. And I just wonder, like, would I actually like this if I didn't write it? I wish I could just experience that, but I can't. It's impossible. You'd have to do some Men in Black stuff. You'd have to phase out my memory and then play me my own song.
Yeah, you don't get to hear like the surprises you put in there. They're, and that's so much of music is keeping it familiar enough, but still surprising enough.
Precise. Yeah, exactly.
But
it's that balance right there. It reminds me of like the little one of the magic of music is like it's got to be like a joke. It's got to be it has to make sense, like the punchline of it, like the setup of a joke, but it's got to have a surprise, like a punchline, And if you just have setups, it's really boring. Your comedian is bombing. If you just have punchlines, it doesn't make sense, So music just kind of has that give and take to it.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's a cool analogy, like a joke. I guess comedians...
It's got to have some surprise, right? It's got to have some twist, And that's why music does that. It'll give you 1, 2, 3, and then it changes, right? It prepares you 3 times and it throws you on a loop. And that's what comedy is. It's always something surprising. There's nothing that's funny that's predictable. Nothing is funny when it's just totally predictable. So there's a sense of humor, I think, embedded into good music where it always keeps your interest. And let's face it, in those moments when you're listening to music and you get goosebumps, right? There's usually a laugh accompanied with it, right? When you're listening to it and you go, oh God, and you start laughing. So there's some part of it that's like inherently funny. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's just a theory.
No, I agree. Like when I play with some of my friends when we're jamming and things are like locking in, often I start laughing. It's something like funny.
Yeah.
It's just like magic or something that it just works.
Yeah. I agree. It's like magic. It's like, how in the hell is this happening? Like, how did this come out of existence? Like, this should not be allowed, It's almost psychedelic, It's just like something from a different, just got beamed in here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, oh, look what's happening. We're doing it.
Yeah,
kind of have to laugh a little bit. I like having the sense of humor in just music, even if it's like serious music. Just to not be so overly artistic that you can't kind of laugh at yourself and think about what you're actually doing. And
100%. And the first thing that just came to mind is I'm going to go back to the Beatles because I go back to the Beatles all the time. A Day in the Life to me is like one of the darkest songs I can possibly imagine. It's one of the most dramatic songs I can possibly imagine. It's got the most somber, depressing chords, those lyrics, the way John Lennon's singing. That crescendo of orchestra is one of the most horrifying things if you listen to it in the right surroundings. But there's still humor in that. I woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head, and then went on my way downstairs and drank a cup, noticed I was like, he's panting. Right. I mean, come on. Panting in your song is a funny thing to do. That is not a thing where, the aristocrats would get their instruments and prepare songs and they would rent out their... you don't... That's a funny thing. And it's in one of the most... I would consider it one of the most dramatic songs. I don't know if dramatic's the right word, but it's not a funny song. And there's humor in it right there, in my opinion. And the little alarm clock that goes off as well, so...
Yeah, Beatles are always a great place to go. Probably,
yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of the reason I got into music production and recording was through the Beatles. Like hearing the fun they had in the studio made me want to do that myself. And
likewise,
opened so many doors. And oh, I can turn that into an instrument, just like the Beatles did. You know, they were blowing bubbles during in cups during Octopus's Garden. You know, and like,
Yes.
how fun is that? You know.
I learned. I credit my dad to turning me on to all that stuff about the Beatles and their production stuff, because he was actually a recording engineer for Motown Studios in L.A., in the L.A. Branch, not the Detroit branch. And this was in the 70s. And then he actually left that life all behind. But as part of his job as a recording engineer, and he was a music lover. That's how he got the job pretty much back then. You didn't need to go to school to be a recording engineer if you were in the right place at the right time, you know, and he ended up being an engineer. And he just spent his life with headphones on listening to the Beatles. So even before, you know, I had a CD player, okay, I'm old enough to have grown up with tapes and stuff like that. My dad was always telling us, oh, listen to the background there. You can hear that tambourine fall apart. Oh, listen to this bass line. They had to splice it right here, and you can hear his bass note cut out. Oh, listen to the guitars out of tune here. And like, I always thought it was normal to hear that stuff. Because, you know, you're a kid, you don't know, oh, my dad is picking up all this weird stuff and telling me about, and then you realize later on that no one else is mentioning those things. Nobody else is talking about. He didn't have the internet. He wasn't Googling like Beatles anomalies on recording. Like, no, this is a guy who spent decades with his headphones on listening to that stuff. And as part of his job, he cared about how that was done. So I got turned on to the whole Beatles thing early, just thinking it was normal. Then later on, when I started actually making music, all those lessons started ringing back in my head. Oh yeah, I remember he said that they recorded it like this, and they used to put the kick drum like that. So I read that book, Here, There, and Everywhere by Jeff Emmerich, you know, and I think that's his name. Yeah, the Beatles recording engineer. And so a lot of that stuff is with me. A lot of that principle, a lot of that feel, it does come directly from the Beatles, courtesy of my dad just, you know, getting that stuff in my head early on. And I appreciate it too. I can't think of much better source material as a musician than the Beatles. It's got everything. Yeah. You know, you've got progressive, you've got ethnic, you've got Western, you've got pop, you've got opera. I mean, you name it, everything is in there. So take your pick of Beatles songs. You're going to find something to just love and to analyze and to grow from.
Yeah, the like replay value on a Beatles record is, I can't even believe how much I can still listen to them. And they recently came out, I guess, corresponding with like the 50th anniversaries. They did like these remasters. Giles Martin, George Martin's son, did all the remixing.
Oh, cool.
Oh, man. I mean, it's like hearing the records all over again.
I got to hear those.
He's pretty true to what was originally done. And of course, it's like, you know, there are people out there that think it's like, you know, sacrilege to even touch those things. But I guess he's got a little street cred being George Martin's son.
Yeah, he's allowed to do that.
And the old stuff is not going anywhere. You can still listen to it, but it is
fun. I mean, as long as you're not like re-recording the parts, go for it, remaster it, see what you can do with it.
Well, things just start popping out, and listening to that again, it's like new stuff. It's unbelievable.
I do remember hearing some of I think it was in 2009, the stereo remasters of some of the albums, but I remember like 8 Days a Week. I remember listening to 8 Days a Week for the first time in like stereo and being like, wow, this is a cool song in stereo, because every time I had heard it before, it was just some mono mix that was, you know, split left and right. But I mean, I'm totally cool with that. Yeah, let's make it sound better. I mean, they cared a lot. They did the best with what they could, but, you know, we've got way better now. And it's not like you're removing anything that they did. I think you're just enhancing the creative decisions that Martin and company made back then.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you are a purist and have a problem with that, I mean...
Listen to the vinyl.
you can go back to it, yeah. But
you don't got to buy it.
As an educational experience even, it's incredible. I mean...
Yeah.
It's unbelievable what they were able to do, and how far they took it. And especially when you think about now, when we have, even in your phone, you have GarageBand, you are light years ahead.
When my dad told me you had to bounce tracks, like he taught me about like, oh yeah, you'd record the rhythm section on 4 tracks, you know, and that means, you know, everything you'd have on those 4, you'd have to bounce that down to 1 track, and then you get your singers in there, and if you had backup singers, you'd have to bounce. And it's like, my God, what an absolute nightmare. And how good your musicians have to be. You know, that's the thing. Your musicians have to be absolutely professional because you can't just punch in. You can't just. So it's opened up the world. It's accessible to everybody, and I think that's great. I think it's great because you still have to write a good song. Just because it's open up to everybody, just because you don't need good musicians in the studio, just because you don't need billions of dollars, just because you still got to write a good song, and you're still not going to get anywhere unless you can just make a good song. So that was true 40 years ago. That was true 100 years ago. It's still true today. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I don't know if the AI is there yet. I don't know if the software is there yet, the plugin or just the make a song button and it just makes your song. Like, that's still a ways away. And I'm not worried about it taking away my job security as a songwriter.
I'm not either. I mean, the technology is pretty insane. Like they are putting out songs that are incredible. But, in talking about the Beatles, say, like, think of like all that came to their music through those 4 people. Their personalities, their styles. Like the AI track is not going to get people wearing mop top haircuts.
Right.
It's just all the religious stuff they got into, going to India. Yep. Like that is just part of the journey that I think is one of the things that makes them so fun to listen to is when you like look at what they did. It sucks you into the music even further. I don't think the humanity, of music will be the thing that I think saves it, just keeping the personality and the stuff that the machine just can't really bring to it.
I could see that being the case. I'm still up in the air if we want to go predictions on AI and taking over the world. And I mean, I'm still up in the air as, I think that you'll be able to do specific genres pretty damn well. I think you'll be able to have an AI that says, we're going to emulate, Baroque era music. We're going to emulate ska. I bet that you're going to do something that can emulate a genre very good, create original pieces of it, and the human will not be able to know that an AI generated it. Mm-hmm. I think that's legitimately already here. I mean, I've seen what OpenAI is doing with their jukebox software, and there's some other stuff. Like, it's pretty much here. Mm-hmm. Creating original works that are going to actually affect the human species as a mass. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to say no. I think that plenty of weird, artificial, accidental creations just falling out of a robot's brain could be really, the humans could be really attracted to that. So, whether it's a fluke or not, I'm really interested. I'm really curious. I'm really eager to see what happens. I don't think it'll ever take away a human performer. Nobody wants to go see a robot perform. Everybody wants to see, some girl singing, and playing the piano, playing that acoustic guitar and wailing her heart out. Everybody wants to see that and feel that and hear that. They're connecting with a human being in that moment. So that's never going to get taken away by a robot performer unless you're Chuck E. Cheese. I know Chuck E. Cheese has the robot performers there. Yeah, exactly. But that's a whole different ballpark. yeah, that is. I would go see an animatronic band for real. But I'm a small minority. I'm a small percentage of people. For the most part, I think human performance is going to stay here forever. I think most human songwriting is going to stay here forever. But I do think that for specialized music like documentaries, commercials, movie soundtracks, I bet AI is literally going to take over. I bet people are going to lose their job because people say, we can just fire up this thing and it literally makes me commercial music. Do you need new health insurance? Try a United Way today, and it'll just spurt out some piano that just makes people happy and think about health insurance and how great of a value they're getting. And why pay a composer? Why pay a production studio when you can pay this AI soft? Like, I think that's less than... I think it's right around the corner. If it doesn't already exist, it's right around the corner.
I think it's been born, and now it's growing up. But that's,
what I've seen on Open,
that's like the music isn't exactly the point, I guess, in a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, right.
For the purpose of like setting a mood and a feel. Yeah, I think you're probably right. That. Yeah, why? Why not? If you put yourself in the creator's position.
Right. You're selling a lint roller, okay? Do you really need to go hire a composer and a no, just fire up the thing, to type in ads and it'll generate, 60 different pieces for you, completely unique, never been done before, and pick the one that works the most. You know, nobody's listening to your song. You just need something to massage their neurons while you're trying to sell them your lint roller at 11 p.m., 2 a.m., whatever, on C-SPAN, okay? Like, don't need much. So why even pay for that stuff? And I think that would take over. I really do. There's a lot of that music. In my experiences, when I used to do freelance work on elance.com, a lot of that work is just garbage, It's like, nobody's going to listen to this. This isn't for... I'm not supposed to make art. I'm supposed to make a product. I'm supposed to make a functional piece of music for a corporate getaway. That's just literally some business team that's going on vacation and they want to do some, sales meeting about how great their sales were this year. And they need
inspiring generic music.
Yeah, pay me and I'll make it for you. And I'll make it in 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. But why would they pay me when they could just hit a button? And so I think that's on its way. Mm.
Yeah, well, that's probably the distinction, right? You just said you're not making art. And I guess that...
I wouldn't consider it art. Maybe somebody would. I consider it functional,
Yeah.
Just like a piece of, if you're a chef and somebody says, make me a pancake, just like okay, I'm just going to make I'm not like, it's not like I'm proud of this thing. It's not like it took me decades to make it. No, I'll make you a pancake. There you go. Done. What's there to be proud of? It's the job. That's the job. There's no shame in it. I don't think it's negative or positive. Just deliver the pancake.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's fair, right? And maybe begs the question, what is art? Where does that line happen? But
totally subjective. I mean, I bet somebody's going to call it art because if you slow it way down, and call it vaporwave now, or if you let it sit for, 100 years, and so, this was made for a lint roller commercial, and then somebody reversed it and rapped over it. Well, now it's art, yeah. So I'm not going to be the judge of it. I wouldn't consider it art because of what my intent was when I made it. My intent was to make $80, on a freelance website. That's not, where I really put my artistic mind to work. Right. But hey, it's not my role to judge, It's not what I would define as art, but somebody else totally could, and I wouldn't fight with them. Actually, I'd take it as a compliment. If you want to call my 45 minutes of work at art, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, why not? So, I guess in talking about like AI and stuff, we were kind of getting into this a little bit in the beginning, but we're both sort of that age where we're on the cusp where we remember before the internet, before all this stuff happened, before it was possible. Yeah, I remember
the land before time. Yes, I remember
my 4-track tape recorder bouncing tracks. I remember when I discovered you could do that, and it was like, what? I just like scored extra tracks on my 4-track machine, and you're stuck with your mix. Whatever you did is what you got, and it degraded terribly. And every time you did it, something weird would happen. But here we are now, and what you're doing is so cool for so many people. Like you said, your father couldn't Google like Beatle recording anomalies or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Here now we can. When did you start playing guitar? When did you start getting into actually making music?
So before I started playing when I was 13 years old. This is the very end of my 8th grade year. And before then,
exactly
I was
the same
doing...
time as me. Summer right before 9th grade, yeah.
And it's a good thing I got it, too, because before then, I was doing yo-yo, I was doing magic tricks, I was doing origami, everything. I should have been in the circus. I could juggle, all that stuff. And like I found the guitar and it was the only one that stuck. I went through a billion different hobbies and the guitar is definitely the one that stuck. But what's really strange is that my dad was a musician. My mom is a great, talented songwriter and singer. My brother was learning guitar. So I'm surrounded by music. Like none of us were in music lessons because my parents are just musicians. They didn't put our kids in music lessons. There was always music around. So I had nothing musical in me though. And it's weird that it took me all the way until the end of 8th grade for anything to show itself. Even in 6th grade, 7th grade, I was convinced that I just didn't have that gene because I remember doing music class, like I was in music class in school and I couldn't do it. I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't read the music. I hated it. It's just like, I suck at this. Like this is just not like, it's just not for me. Like, like you're tall people, short people, there's musicians, there's non-musicians. My parents are musicians, my brother's a musician. I'm clearly not. And I believed that until I accidentally got hooked on playing guitar when I was 13. Like it was just an accident, like picking up my brother's guitar and playing Old MacDonald, literally, on my lap, like plucking it like a pedal steel, you know what I mean? And just getting like, oh, I'm going to do that again tomorrow. And then being like, oh, I started liking Metallica. I got hooked on the Black Album by Metallica. It was like the first time I really got into like anything with guitar in it. And I was like, I wanted to learn the intro to The Unforgiven, and then I wanted to learn some other. So just little riffs, little Metallica riffs, and I started sneaking my brother's guitar and just got completely hooked on playing these little riffs and perfecting them. That was at the end of 8th grade. But I mean, from there on out, it was just nonstop. At the end of 8th grade, I picked that thing up, and like, it was constant practice for a long time. You know, the first 4 years is where I got most of my practicing done. I mean, I was playing, 4 to 6 hours a day for my 8th grade year, freshman year, sophomore year. Obviously, things changed a little bit in high school. You get a car, things, the social life a little bit more. But still, I was playing a lot in those years. But that's when it all started.
That sounds eerily similar to my journey.
Ah, yeah?
Yeah, it was.
Let's hear it.
Right after 8th grade, summer of 8th grade. And I didn't have a lot of music in the family, but I'm interested to like hear what you think about this now, coming from this perspective of like thinking you just didn't have it. So I didn't have any music in me at all. And I took 7th grade general music. I hated it. I used to like to draw a lot, and I actually drew like comic books about that class and how much I hated it, but it was after 8th grade, a friend of mine came back. He'd moved away, come back, and he showed me he was playing guitar, and he taught me how to play Enter Sandman, the opening to that. And
there you go. That was another early one for me.
Yeah, to that point, I didn't even know that if I had a guitar, I could play the songs I heard on the radio. I didn't even know that. I thought if you were a rock star, you were beamed down from another dimension, and you were just like here, you had your long hair and whatever.
Yes, I'm glad you said that.
And it was honestly, too, one of the early things in life that taught me if you work hard at something, you will get results at it. You practice and you hear that growing up, practice makes perfect. I played baseball when I was young, but I think I had some natural talent. Just I was taller than a lot of the kids, and I threw the ball hard,
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I had to really work to get to that. I just kind of worked to improve from there. But music was way different, where I didn't understand anything about it. But it taught me that you can learn it, and it's not all just gifts and talents all the time.
I am so glad you said that you had this idea of these rock stars being like teleported from a different dimension. So at first I thought, okay, my family's musicians, I'm not. Another example, my mom can draw and paint. She's a wonderful artist. My brother picked that up. My brother can draw anything. I can't do that, and my dad can't do that. Now, we just can't. Sorry, I cannot draw. But my brother's just insanely gifted with it. So I learned to accept that at a young age, like all kids, that everybody has their things they're good at, and everybody has their things they're bad at. Well, eventually I realized, okay, I am a musician. I am a guitar player. Okay, now I'm 16, 18, whatever, 19. But now the delusion I had is that there's two kinds of musicians. There's people that play their instrument, and there's people that write music. Because I can play my instrument. I can play this Metallica song. I can play this Dream Theater song. I can learn these songs. I can print out the tabs on Ultimate Guitar and memorize them and play them at the talent show. But there's no way I can write something like that. I believed that. I believed, like everybody wants to say and everybody wants to romanticize, that, this is just he's just a special person, that, good musicians just let their soul express themselves, and they don't have to practice. It's just this magic that comes out and pours out of their soul like a divine insight, and the stars align and the clouds open up and the beam enters their pineal gland and out through their mouth shoots out beautiful art. That's what is the paradigm. That is the public's perspective. Sure. And I believed it. And it's totally, totally wrong. Yes, that happens, maybe to a small percentage of the people. It happens to me, okay, 1% of the time, where oh, it all worked out. I am talented. Everything happened effortlessly. But that's not how it happens. How it happens is you learn, you work, you fail, you try again, you develop the skills, you reassess. Simply put, it all changed once I learned about music theory. I couldn't write music, and then I learned music theory. And then I started writing really crappy songs. And then I started writing slightly less crappy songs, and it just got better. But before I learned, hey, you've got 7 notes in a scale, you can turn those into chords. Here, now you've got every pop song ever written, you've got every oldie song ever written, every nursery rhyme. That changed everything in my life. Once I realized, oh, you don't have to be magical. You don't have to be an entity of, abnormal intelligence. No, you just got to learn some theory. And then you can choose to throw that theory away if you want. You can choose to ignore it, but you should learn it because it explains a hell of a lot about the music that you hear on a daily basis. So I'm so glad you said it, because that's the story of my life, is thinking these things were inaccessible and then later on realizing actually they are accessible. You're just going to have to do some work. That's all.
Yeah, I think I kind of lucked out just being around people that were making up songs, and it was like, well, if you could do it, and we did it together, I need to come up with a part for this, I made it up. But I did notice playing with some other people at school that were formally trained musicians, excellent musicians. I mean, some of them went on to just be musicians because they play so well. But if they didn't have the music in front of them, they didn't know what to do.
Right.
And we would sometimes get together with these people and we'd be jamming in our little band in the basement and we'd get this like professional musician kid over and we'd be like, yeah, it was playing an A, go ahead. And they're like,
yeah,
what do you mean? What notes? And you're clearly superior to all of us in your abilities. But it was like that block or something.
There you go, though. I mean, we're getting to the heart of the issue of what people call being a good musician. In school, they teach you, okay, pick up your saxophone, learn to read this piece of music perfectly. Okay, now you're a good musician. Where that is just one skill. That is one skill a musician can do, is look at a piece of music and replicate that piece of music. That is not the whole end-all, be-all. In my opinion, what's far more important is to take that saxophone player, teach him the blues scale, and then let him know, hey, if you see a guitar player or a bass player playing a bass note over and over again, just play this scale on top of it, and you're going to be you're improvising now. It's jazzy, it's bluesy, it's rocking, it's all those things. I think that is a billion times more important to work with a student on a saxophone than having them play marching tunes or, just replicating something for next week's recital. But obviously, that's not the way the education system works. They're not interested in getting people into bands that jam out and improvise. Some of them do, obviously, those programs do exist, but traditionally, this is pretty screwed up. You know what I mean? I'm 100% with you. They had all the training in place, but they still couldn't perform with you. And that's a problem there. If they were trained for years as a professional musician, they should be able to meet up with a group of guys and just play without music in front of their face.
Yeah, different
in my
skill.
opinion. That's what I believe.
I think that was something that, because, looking back, I think a lot of the things I was drawn to were creativity type things. I like to draw. I like to make things up and pretend and all that. So, I don't think I saw that in music. It was just, like, here's the music. Now move your fingers in this pattern. And when I started playing guitar and like trying to make up parts for the band and come up with songs for the band, that scratched a different itch.
Yeah. So. I never really considered myself as a creative person. And I'm very analytical. I approach things, you'll see it in my videos. When I describe the way something's talking about, we're talking about it very sterilely. We're talking about it very step by step by step. But doing that allowed me to be creative. Like I can officially confidently say I can be creative because I'm so confident now. I know that I'm never going to get in trouble. I know that I can stretch myself to the absolute extremes and it's still going to sound musical because I know enough about what people call music, the thing that we all agree we call it music, I know enough about that where I can get away with it. Like I can still get extremely weird and just let my mind go to these insane lengths and do things backwards that shouldn't be done and do them in scales that don't exist because I know I can still make it sound like music. And that to me is freeing. That to me is so freeing. And I never, as a kid, I remember literally writing an essay about how I hate the word imagination because it's all made up. That's the kind of person and I still think analytically, but once I learned music, once I learned to make music and make art, it's just pure creativity. And then I use these rules of theory just to get it out into the real world. I use theory just so it gets born. Because without the theory, without being able to produce it, without being able to get the execution, it's just an idea. It doesn't actually get produced, So to me, it's a balance. You got to have that creative part of your mind. But it really helps to have some theory. I'm not going to say you have to have, everybody has some theory, but you got to be able to execute, So the idea, it's on its own, just isn't enough.
Thinking about it, I think maybe I used creativity as a way to avoid some of the technicalities of things. So where I'm being creative, I think about like drawing when I was little. I was never really able to draw realistic. So I drew cartoons, and I just dove in,
Boom.
and I had more fun. I was like, I just do cartoons,
And that's totally cool. People grow up to be the best cartoon artists that way. I mean, what you wouldn't be able to do is also be a Renaissance painter and a Trump. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And for some reason, I decided I kind of wanted to do everything. I kind of wanted to say, well, I want to learn jazz and blues and rock and metal. That's just, we all take our own paths. And when you do it the way I did, it means you're not really good at one thing. It means you're just kind of good at a lot of things, which is why you're one click away from seeing somebody that can shred faster than me. You're one click away from somebody that plays way better blues guitar than me. You're one click away on YouTube from, hearing somebody that, that writes better, harmonized leads. It's just because I'm not really good at one thing. I tried to get good at all of it. And I was interested in all of it. I didn't just say, I want to just do this. There's other parts in my life where I do that. I'm just going to do this one thing. I don't need to get good. I don't need to learn all of the, I don't need to learn all the details. Let's just learn what I want to learn. But for music, whatever reason, I just wanted to be a completionist. I just liked all of it for the guitar. And I still want to beat music. I still want to just keep going through the levels and figure out what's next, and, skip to the ones I want to get to.
Yeah. I think maybe as a younger person, I was avoiding the practice technicality stuff with that. But, now I understand the benefit of that stuff a lot more.
Some people are lucky where the practice they just get addicted to it. I was one of those kids, and I notice it with my students. Some people are just lucky. I'm going to say the word lucky, not motivated. They're lucky because their brain just likes to practice. It's like playing a video game where they just you put them on the guitar and it's the same thing. It's like, oh, I want to get better at this. Not everybody has that built-in neural drive, and some people do. And the ones that do, guess what? They're going to be better because practice is more fun for them. It's literally built in to be more fun for them. So it's just going to be easier for them. Whereas some people, the practice isn't as fun and they have to make it a chore, and it's obviously going to be a little slower for them. But they can still succeed. It's just going to be a little harder and a little longer.
Yeah, I might have been the throw the video game controller kid when that one part in the game where you have to jump is too hard, and I'd rather play the game where I can just explore the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
But it's like a disciplined practice. It's you don't see that, I guess, or it's very easy not to see like the results of that because it's very easy to get frustrated and just like we were saying, think you're not that kind of person or you're not good at that. But going through the routine or the monotony of it and seeing it pay off, then I think you can kind of get lucky and start to enjoy it. Like you
if
said.
you do it a few times, once something is, here was the story of my entire guitar playing. This is impossible. I'm going to try it anyways. Oh, it's all of a sudden not impossible. Now it's really easy. And okay, now I find something new and I say, this is impossible. And then you realize, wait a second, I've been here before. Last time I thought something was impossible and then it just became not so impossible and then it eventually became easy. And you realize this is the way it works. Every little musical challenge you encounter, you're going to start it off and it's going to say to you, this is impossible. And then you have to remember the 100 other times that you've been confronted with this thing is like, oh no, I just gotta deal with it,
Yeah.
That's the process,
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens 100 times in an hour. Okay. Sometimes it happens 100 times in a year, but that is the process.
Yeah.
What once was impossible soon becomes so easy. You question, how did it ever matter? Think about strumming a C major chord. It's my favorite one. Oh God, as a guitar teacher, you forget, you'll never forget as a guitar teacher, but once you start teaching guitar, you realize how freaking hard it is to play a C chord. Every guitar player does it. Nobody thinks about it because they learned it after their first year and they forgot all the blood, sweat, tears, pain, all the notes that didn't ring out, all the times that their finger got the... It's really, 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 really impossible if you tell somebody who's never done it before. It's impossible. And if you put yourself in that shoes now, just imagine, would you have the perseverance if you just didn't have it? Imagine we took away all your skills, Okay, now play a C chord. And you'd go, oh God, this is impossible. It's that, but you just got to just troop through it, and it'll soon be easy. It'll be so easy you never even won't even think about it.
When I was about 14, I saved up and bought the Nirvana Nevermind guitar tab book.
Oh yeah,
which
was it accurate?
It was very accurate. I gotta say,
good.
at least from what I could tell back then. Maybe I'll look at it again one day, but it was surprisingly accurate. And I remember learning Polly, the acoustic song on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, I know how to play it, so I'm going to play along with the record. And I put it on. And about like 30 seconds into it, like I couldn't even squeeze my hand on the fretboard anymore. It's a very simple song, 4 chords. But, oh man, like I just remember being floored. I was like, I can't do this for 30 seconds. And these guys are playing whole concerts. Like, how do you get to that? How does that happen?
Yeah. So many of those little mountains. Here was one. I learned the Fade to Black intro solo by Metallica. And, and then I was like, oh, okay, because I'm practicing just the tabs, not along with the song. And then I try practicing it along with the song, and it's impossible to practice along with the song. And then I was like, well, okay, I'll have my brother play it really slow. I'll have my brother do 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 do, and then I'll play along with it. And then I realized I have no idea when to start this guitar solo. And I just assumed I didn't know there was a thing called rhythm. I didn't know there was a thing called 8th notes and 16th notes. I didn't know I could have counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3. I could have counted the whole solo. I didn't know that. I just thought this is magic that I don't have, so I'm going to stop trying. And I stopped trying. I mean, this is the problem with music education. This is why I'm so big on education, because for me personally, it opened the pathway to confidence. It opened the pathway to, I can do it. And there's other people out there like me. Some people out there don't need it, okay? I get it. Some people are born talented. I've worked with them as students. It's awesome that those people exist, but in my experience, it's very rare that people just get born into this world able to make music. So for me, like every one of these theoretical ideas just made me stronger. It made me more capable. And I really wish they had been taught to me earlier. I wish I didn't have to discover them. I wish that somebody sat me down and just showed me this stuff and said, look, this is what we're going to do today, and here's why. And that's the way I'm teaching, is just, I wish this stuff was taught to me earlier,
Let me ask a question, something I've been thinking about. So I mentioned to you, I think I've even said it on the podcast, doing this like social media thing with my students in school. Just getting them to pay attention to like what they're doing and how much time they're spending on their phone. And it's such an easy way these days to distract yourself, to stay busy, to not be bored. And I was really questioning to myself, if I had the same technology when I was 14, would I have ever been bored enough and had enough free time to sit with those problems and actually form that C chord and hold it down and realize my fingertips are going to be all bleeding and hurting? Would I have just been like, this is impossible, let's just go and do something else? Because
that's a great question.
I think a lot of the stuff I did as a kid was because I didn't have anything else to do.
I always said that getting grounded is the greatest thing that can happen for a guitar student. Like every one of my students that got grounded immediately got better. Like what else? They can't go on their phone. They can't go on their computer. All they've got is anger towards their parents and a guitar. Like that's the only thing the parents let them hold on to. So, I would say that we still had the internet, I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but we still had forms of the internet. You know what I mean? I just got it a little bit younger than you. We had computer games. We had Nintendos. We had Sega Genesis. We had all sorts of distractions. I think that there will always be plenty of opportunities for a kid to not want to focus and work on something and work hard at something. Plenty of opportunities. I don't think that, obviously the challenges are different today for kids. I'm not going to speak what it's like to be a kid in these environments. I don't envy them at all. Like the whole social media thing is just way too much pressure. To be able to have to worry about school stuff outside of school, I think is just insane. You know, it's hard enough to deal with the pressures of school when you're in school, but to actually have to deal with it out of school doesn't really seem like fun. But I don't think that it's going to make it any harder for music. I think it's going to make it easier just because of the sharing of information. I think anytime humans get together and share that information, I mean, that's how I learned. My biggest guitar teacher was the internet. My biggest guitar teacher was wholenote.com, which is sadly now defunct. But I mean, I spent years on that website consuming lessons that individuals would put up. It was a brilliant little website that would play MIDI guitar. You could make a lesson on MIDI on this like proprietary fretboard, and you would click in the frets and it would publish tabs, and you could make a lesson like, this is how you, and I learned from there, and I started making lessons on there. But like when I was 16, I didn't know how to teach guitar, but I was like, oh, I'll load this tab, I'll make lessons on wholenote.com. So like, I mean, way back in the day, this is, 2000, 2001, I'm learning the majority of my content from the internet. And everything since that point has taken me to where I'm at now. So like, I know firsthand that I wouldn't have ever gotten here without that, because I don't live in LA. I wasn't in band, I wasn't in music lessons. It was all on the internet. It was all the world sharing it to me through my computer screen. So that could have been a distraction. I have plenty of distractions, obviously, but it also was a boon to my learning. So, with the good comes the bad. I think with most things like that, with any kind of technology is gonna, you're gonna have the sour and the sweet.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's a point I didn't actually consider. The fact that I could go on YouTube at this point and learn those things and figure out like how to get past those mountains that I was on.
Yeah, and even pre-YouTube. I mean, the Usenet forums and alt guitar and individual websites and stuff like that. There used to be guitar competition websites I'd go to, but like I said, wholenote.com was like, that was my training grounds. I miss it. It's a shame that nobody took care of it, because it's just relic internet architecture at this point.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely printed out some tabs in the old days off of websites when that started coming around. That was a lot of fun to have all that available to you.
It was actually my first, wholenote.com was my first bit of internet fame, because I made a lesson on classical gas. Like I spent like a whole month meticulously tabbing out the notes for classical gas. And like, it took me a long time to get all the rhythms and the fingers and stuff like that. And I made this 9-page lesson on it. And like on the wholenote.com website, they published it as like one of their featured lessons. And it got like, 150,000 views on this. And for like, I was like 17 or something, 16. And I was like, oh, wow, my lesson got all these. And it wasn't even a lesson. It was just tabs, but felt like a lesson, So that was my first experience of being like, wow, like this is really cool. Sharing all this with all these people. They all like it. And I just never knew at that point in time, like, you're going to be doing this in 20 years. Like, nobody told me that.
When did you start? When did you actually start making your own content?
I started making, I have a YouTube channel that nobody knows about that I started a long time ago, back when YouTube started. That's my secret channel that surprisingly still is not, it's a good thing that nobody's found out about it. But it's got a bunch of my artistic projects and a bunch of nonsense on there. But I didn't actually start making like, let's make guitar lessons. That was almost 4 years ago. So we're coming up on 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So 3 years, 10 months ago is when I began.
That's some pretty awesome progress too. I mean, because I know you're approaching like 500,000 subscribers at this point.
It's moving. It's since the day I started, it's moved a lot quicker than I suspected.
Yeah, that must be kind of wild. I mean, do you ever think about like how many like Madison Square Gardens that is?
Oh no, don't say that. No.
Yeah.
No, I have not thought about that. I know. Here's what I know. I know that I will never get the diamond play button, which is 10 million subscribers, and I know that PewDiePie has like 80 million subscribers. So that's all I remember. Like, oh, you got 500,000. Okay, cool. Yeah. This dude has 84 million. So like, if you want to talk about big YouTuber, that's a big YouTuber.
Yeah.
So like in the grand scheme of things, compared to my colleagues at YouTube, I'm nowhere even on the map. I'm not even on the radar. For me, I'm miles beyond my wildest dreams. But, relatively speaking, as far as YouTubers, every day I'm finding out about some new YouTuber that's getting canceled, that's, done some terrible thing, that's, horrendously maimed somebody in an accident. And they've got like 7 million subscribers. And it's like, oh, here's another person I didn't know existed that's way more famous that's on the same platform I am. So, there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of YouTubers.
Oh yeah, there's who knows what the number is. But
Yeah.
no, that's
But I didn't ever expect to get to, I didn't expect to get over 10,000. I'll be honest with you. It was not I just didn't. And once I did get 10,000, it happened pretty quick. And I was just like, wow, what's happening? And from there, I mean, it just, once 10,000 people know about your stuff, they share it, and then you just can't control it. There's nothing you can do to. I used to do little posts on Facebook or Reddit, like, "Hey, watch my video." You can't compete with 10,000 people sharing your stuff.
What do you attribute to getting to that point? Do you think it was your work posting on Reddit, or?
I can tell you, to get my initial subscribers, yeah. I mean, my very, very first few videos, how are people know you post? A tree falls in the forest, there's nobody there.
Yeah,
how is people going to know it makes a sound?
When you make something, right? For the first time, and like, I did it. And then no one cares.
So, I mean, I'll spill you the whole beans for my entire strategy here. What I did is I signed up for Facebook groups, and I wasn't even on Facebook. I spent my whole life, I'm a millennial, like pure millennial, and I've never owned a Facebook account. I signed up for one just to start like this thing. And I was like, okay, I'll finally bite the bullet, finally give Mark Zuckerberg my entire soul. And so I signed up for Facebook, and I go to all these Facebook groups, blues guitar, shred guitar, and I would just like some stuff, comment some stuff. And then I made my first lessons on YouTube. And then I shared them on those Facebook groups, and they got 3 likes, 4 likes, 5 likes. But they got, I would look at a video, and by the end of the week, it was like, oh, this thing got 22 views. Cool. 22 people that I don't know. I didn't advertise this to 22 people I know. So 22 people found my lessons. Cool. Then I went on to Reddit/our guitar, and I did a lesson one time. I posted a thing like, hey, I made this lesson because I'm sick of guitar lessons that I see on YouTube. They talk too much. They're too slow. They don't get to the point. So I made this. I made that post on Reddit. It went to the top of the subreddit. Tons of posts. Like 2 days, it's sitting there. I got like 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, like in literally like 2 days. Amazing, right? Wow. Maybe a month later, I do it again on Reddit/our guitar. They banned me for self-promotion. Now, at this time, I wasn't advertising anything. I wasn't I wasn't doing anything, and they just ban you. That's what they do. Reddit has this real big problem where they say,
too, yeah.
They say we want
tutorials and nope.
It's horrible. So this is the ecosystem that Reddit built. Is they say, stop posting reposts. We're sick of reposts. Okay. So you post original content, and they say, you can't post original content. We're banning you. So the only thing you can do is just lie and say that it's somebody else's, or you can game the system and be like, hey, post my stuff on Reddit on my behalf and say, my friend made this. So literally that's the system they created at /our guitar, which is one of the worst musician communities you can possibly subscribe to. So I'm going to say I did use that community to get my initial subscribers. After that, I mean, first 1,000 or so I got from Reddit and Facebook. Then I slowed down and literally was just organic. I do think the content of the lessons is all it took. Also, I got really lucky with one good viral video at the right time. I made a video about Metallica, and it was an early video. It was very poorly produced. My face is completely out of focus. The audio is horrible. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but the video went crazy. It got like 500,000 views, and to have something like that in your first dozen views. I mean, I still don't get videos with that many views. So to get something like that early is just huge. I mean, it just means that a lot of people know about you. A lot of those people are guitarists, so that means they're seeing a lot of my stuff. That means more people are sharing my stuff. So that's how it all began.
That's cool. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I can tell you why I continued watching your stuff was the content, the quality of it. That was definitely something special about it. But even still, like you said, it's always, it doesn't matter in the beginning. People have to come across it and see it. But yeah. So,
and that's why I still treat every video just as good as I can, because I mean that might be the first video you ever see of mine. So why would I phone it in? Why would I just do some quickie little? No, I want it to be as good as I can.
How long do you spend doing your videos?
Oh, good Lord. That depends on the kind of video. So like this harmonic. So this last video I did on the harmonic minor modes is an insane amount of time, because not only did I make the video, which is, a 22-minute video, and, for video editing, every single minute is,
Hour.
can be an hour of editing. But I also had to make 12 different jam tracks. Well, I chose to make 12 different jam tracks to upload them for people. And then I also made posters for people and charts for people. So like I took on a ton of work because I wanted it to be the greatest lesson ever on the harmonic minor modes. And I wanted it all be free. I didn't want people to pay anything for it. So that's like, you're talking like hundreds of hours of work, like at least 100 hours just on the, like making the music, recording the examples, writing the examples, getting all the resources prepared, the charts, rendering them all out, then the video stuff. So I would say something like that, maybe like 120 hours. It took a long time. My average video, I would say maybe, because I always have to make music with it too. Like almost every one of my videos has multiple musical components. So depending on how big that musical component is, that can be, 12 to 20 hours just making music. And then, because I'm slow, I take my time and I like to tweak things. And then, I would say just take that same amount and then, maybe double it for the video. So between 30 and 60 hours, I'd say is my average video. But it can be shorter if it's an easy topic, which is rare. And it can be longer if it's a really insane topic, which is also rare.
I'd have to imagine that. I saw the harmonic, the minor modes, and like, yeah, that's honestly, I've never even thought about them.
Yeah, I know. And when somebody does, I don't want them to Google it and run across the pages that I ran across. That's like, here's some facts that don't make any sense, that don't help you make music. I want them to Google it and find that. And they can be like, okay, I have all my charts now. I have information. I can hear it. I have perspectives. I can, like it's so much more helpful. It's not going to scare people away. And I think it's useful information.
I mean, the musical examples were great, especially in that video, because some of the material you had to work with, some of those modes are. I think you made a comment in the video like, I would never want my music to sound like this.
Yeah. I think my phrasing was like, no, I'm not sure about you, but when I listen to my own music, I don't want it to sound like that. Right. And it's just true. Some people do, but come on. Like I felt bad about uploading that section of music. I felt like literally embarrassed. Like, oh God, I'm going to make people listen to this. Like, yeah, I am.
Well, I think it shows, though, that there are use cases for it. And if you, maybe not your artistic music, but if you're trying to create something that feels uncomfortable and tense, that stuff actually works really nice. And
now here's where I get in trouble, okay? Because I'm supposed to say, all scales are equal and every scale can be musical. And, you just have to use your imagination. I'm supposed to say that because that's, let's face it. Anything can be musical. But as a teacher who cares about results, I do want to scare you away from ultralocrian. I do want to encourage you to not write with that scale because I need you to be writing songs in major first, all right? You need to be able to write a song in minor, okay? Like, forget about ultralocrian, forget about Dorian Sharp 4. Like, can you write a pop song? Can you write a blues song? Like, if you can't do if you don't understand the basics of like the minor scale and the minor tonality, what are you doing trying to write in locrian? Really? Like, I know you think it's cool, but like, let's walk before we can run. And that's why I really try to crap on those scales because too many people chase them as like some mystical, like, oh, this is the really deep stuff. And if I write with locrian, everybody will respect me. Like, no. Like it's just weird, and just because it's weird doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's bad either. It's just it's going to be really hard to make music that people like. Okay, universally speaking, and I say that with absolute fact because we can't find music that's in locrian. We can find 2 songs, and you can make YouTube videos about that and get 1 billion views because you found a song in locrian. It's just not popular, and it's not popular because people clearly don't like it. So I do want to push my students, the people that are saying, hey, Jake, how do I become a better musician? I want to say, well, avoid scales like locrian. That feels like good advice as a music instructor. It feels like terrible advice if you're just trying to pursue art and abstraction. You should do anything. I don't want to say anything's off limits. But, it's like you can find gold anywhere, but you could find a lot of it here in major. You could find a lot of it here in minor. It's going to be really hard to find gold in locrian. So maybe just spend your time digging in those other areas. Yeah. That's my perspective on it. But I get in trouble, because people say, oh, how dare you? Like anything can be musical. Yes, I get it. I know. I'm just saying it's really hard, okay? Like, that's all.
Well, yeah, you're going to be hard pressed to like walk in on a jam session That's going to be the key
Oh,
of choice.
I'll walk out of a jam session if
That's a jam session.
they're all in low Korean.
Yeah, that's for the musicians. That's not for anyone listening. A lot of jams.
And here's the other thing. If I want to feel uncomfortable, if I want to feel weird, if I want to feel atonal, then why do I need rules? You think I need rules? You think you need somebody to tell you how to be weird? No, you can just be weird. You can go out of tune. You can make up a scale. You can throw notes together. Like, you don't need some structure for how to be weird. That's like following an algorithm to be random. Like, now you're not random, you know?
Right,
so
right.
if you really want to break the rules, then don't consult the rules. You know, that's my perspective. I don't know.
No, it makes sense because there's so much, right? And as you start getting into this, learning some theory, learning how to play, you can just keep uncovering stuff. And sometimes it's worth knowing like where your time is best spent. And and you might go reading those comments and have someone tell you that you really need to spend your time in super low Korean, and like that's where it's all at if you want to be a real guitarist. And then you might think that, and you'll just have a hard time finding anyone to play with.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that video is one of those ones where I actually had to push it off because I didn't know what I was talking about. Like, I knew about the first mode, the fourth mode, the third mode, the fifth mode. The other ones I learned when I was younger, and I was like, okay, these are BS. They're useless. I'm never going to use them. Goodbye. But when I started coming back to the topic here to teach it, I realized, oh crap, there's more about these modes than I didn't know, you know, like that I know a lot more now than I did when I was 20. So I shouldn't be really going into this without learning more. So it was an example where I kind of had to slow down just to figure out more. Because I thought, like, for example, that third mode, I didn't think that Ionian sharp fifth had much use for it. I didn't think that any augmented based scales had much use. But it wasn't until the best, like, 5 or 6 years where I learned to love augmented based tonics and, like, accept them. Like, and it was just my shift. It was a shift in my understanding. Like, oh, I didn't hear this as art before, and now I do. So I shouldn't really be pretending that, you know, these are bad scales when clearly it's just until recently that I just learned to love them.
Yeah, and I think I did the same thing growing up too, where I was learning. I took some lessons. I had a great guitar teacher. I mean, talk about shredding. It was like you couldn't even hear the notes.
Oh,
so
yeah?
fast, you know.
Yeah, just one note.
and he was into a lot of the exotic stuff. He showed us like harmonic minors, but for me, listening to, you know, pretty poppy music, Beatles, Nirvana, Weezer was one of my favorites growing up. I mean, it just wasn't applicable, you know. So a lot of that stuff got left behind. But now, getting older, exploring different styles, looking for different moods and emotions. And sometimes it's not, I'm going to make the whole song in that. I might just have a little taste here or there. It can really open up your palette a lot. But I don't think if I think if I was trying to learn all that stuff at once and not focusing mostly in the major scales, minor scales, maybe the blues a little, I don't think I would have come to that appreciation. And like, you know, you understand like what this tool is for. It's a weird tool. You're only ever going to use it like on that one job.
Right.
But when that job comes, it's pretty good to have.
Exactly. I feel the same way just about technique in general. Having speed, having any sort of speed in your playing, I don't care. I do not care how fast you can play at all. I don't care if you can shred. But if you can, it's pretty cool to be able to bust it out at just the right times. You know what I mean? Nothing nauseates me quicker than somebody who just shreds at all the wrong times. But I never get sick of somebody playing slow. I don't ever be like, oh, wow, he's playing slow. Like, I do get sick of people playing fast. So, you know, I treat that, you know, that little bit of, you know, adding in some exotic tonalities to me is just like adding in some, you know, exotic, you know, some really virtuosic playing. It's fine to throw in there, you know, a little bit of taste, but it doesn't make or break it for me. There's a billion songs I can listen to that are, you know, just, you know, let's go back to the Beatles. Let's go back to Day in the Life. Nothing fancy there. You know, we don't have to do any modal analysis of a day in the life. You know, it's just a few chords, you know, E minor, either it's halfway G major, halfway E minor. You know, there you go.
Yeah, that
and then
kind
what's
of
the middle section
vibe that it brings. Yeah.
So, you know, you don't have to go into ultra low Koreans, you know, and it's the greatest song. It's one of the greatest compositions that mankind has ever produced. I can't produce that. I wish I could. If that was my song, I would just die right now peacefully. My soul would leave and I would feel content if that was my production. So, that doesn't have to be fancy. One chord songs. Tomorrow Never Knows is one chord. Okay, It's a C. All right, they imply a B flat in there. And good Lord, there's another one. I wish I wrote Tomorrow Never Knows. So you just need one note on the bass, just a C.
Well, there's an interesting studio story, right? And I mean, it's almost like, did they write that song? They kind of like
Good question. Yeah, or was it? This is where I say they facilitated its existence. It would not exist if not for Jeff Emmerich and John Lennon and Ringo Starr and that loop of tape. It would not exist if were not for all of them. Nobody wrote it though. So it was a summoning, they all performed this ritual and they summoned the song into existence and they needed all the wizards there to be present. And that's why they all get credit. I love those kind of things. You can't credit any one of them. Nobody wrote it, but it exists.
Even the lyrics, John Lennon said largely from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. They're
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was very into that. So a lot of that was just kind of pulling those ideas. Yeah,
I thought it was reading those lyrics multiple times. I always thought it was like him giving you instructions on how to engage in a psychedelic trip. That's what I always thought. This seems like him telling people, hey, just. You're going to eat this acid. I just need you to relax, turn off your mind, float down. You're not dying, all right? You're not dying. You're just being within, all that stuff. That's what it sounded like to me. Yeah.
That might be an element of that, There's parallels, I guess. Altered state of consciousness is
exactly.
Meditation.
And God, those vocal effects on there too. How psychedelic are those?
Yeah. Yeah, that's some of the stuff too for me. It's just inspired my interest in production to go through that kind of stuff.
And that was one of the first, God, that song is so good. I mean, just from a production point of view alone, those backwards seagulls and the backwards guitar solo and that drum loop just drilling into your brain. I mean, that is an incredible sonic experience. And for them to have made it all the way back then, it just put chills up my spine. Literally, now thinking about it, if that came out today in its fully fleshed form and had never been heard before, it would blow people's minds. But it was done all the way back then. I mean, it's an incredible piece. It really is.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I love it. It's one of my top favorites.
To make that today would be it'd take some thinking, some tricks. Yeah.
But I also like it because I can play that beat on the drums. It's one of the 3 beats I can play on the drums.
Yeah, nice. Probably one of the earlier looped drum beats too.
Yes. It's one of the earliest I can think of. I literally cannot name you an earlier drum loop than Tomorrow Never Knows. I'm sure it exists, but I can't think of one.
Probably very avant-garde, abstract thing.
Yeah. Whether it got to the radio or not is a different story,
Right. Yeah. I wonder, people's music, taste in music is I feel like it kind of divided in a way, once internet and everything came along. We used to get MTV, and here's the music. This is what you get.
Yeah.
But now you can, there's almost not that main avenue anymore. Everyone's got their splintered thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we could ever have something that's that huge culturally.
I think so. Are you talking a music place like MTV or just a genre? Or
I mean, just the new Beatles record came out and everyone is getting it. And I mean, there are things that come out that are big, but I just to have everybody in agreement on this is the hot new thing.
Yeah, that's a really funny thing. I would like to think so. I would like to be optimistic and rosy-eyed and think that the world can heal and we can all be together once again and then hold hands and unite and listen to this song. That was the thing. I don't know what it's like to have a global. I mean, you and I both weren't there for that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's like, but it was a thing. I mean, from everybody that was there, they say it was a thing. It was a weird thing that you and I just weren't a part of. So I'd like to think so. I can't tell you who it's going to be. It's probably not going to be Greta Van Fleet. It's probably not going to be, Billie Eilish. Even though these are musicians that can have some acclaim and credit for their own esteem, everything's so polarized right now. If anything is popular, if anything is good, there must be a sect, a group of people that are dedicated to hating that thing and arguing against it now. So like until that goes away, I don't know if we're going to have, some sort of like, it's just, maybe I'm over accentuating, but it just seems like a very polarized time, even in culture. Like people just can't like things. Like even if you just want to like something, people have to, tell you why you're bad for liking it. You know what I mean? So
Well, maybe that happened with the Tiger King last year on Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I do say that. Yeah, I will say this. I think the kids are better with this. I've noticed with the kids, at least my experience teaching kids, is that they're way less likely to just crap all over their friends' taste. They're way more open to being like, yeah, that's what they're into. I'm into something different. And it's what I've seen with the younger generation, and that makes me optimistic.
Now, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's pretty much all I got.
Well, that's like usually a one-on-one situation, would you say?
Like they'll bring in like when they talk about their friends at school and they talk about what's going on at school. I mean, they're still kids, so they're still, horrible to each other, and they're still, terrible. But I hear a shift in like, maybe it's just the kids that I get that come over my way, but they're a little bit more accepting of like other tastes. Like, oh, he's an athlete. Like there's no longer that divide between the musicians and the athletes like there used to be.
I agree with that.
Or like there's no longer like even between like, what kind of music you listen to. Like, oh, it's cool. He's into rap. He makes beats, but I shred guitar, and we both hang out and we both call each other musicians. Like that used to be a conflict when I was in high school. Like, rap isn't music, man. I play Dream Theater. That's not a thing anymore, and that makes me really happy. At least around here it is. And so it might just be my bubble, but I am optimistic that the youth is a little bit more accepting of like, hey, they're into comic books, and I'm into I don't know, knitting. I don't know, what do the kids do these days?
Not knitting.
TikTok. No knitting trends. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with some of that. I ask you if it's a one-on-one thing, though, because one thing I've noticed over the last few years is I find it hard to get anyone in my class to like admit to liking something.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Because when you say, I like this, you're putting yourself on the hook a little bit, like, what do you mean you like that? That's stupid, and you can
you're right.
That's like really risky, and I think more than it's been in the past. And I mean, hating something, that's fine. Everyone's happy to jump on that because that's not. You're not identifying with that. You're not saying that's me. You're pushing it away.
Exactly.
But it's hard to like. I think from what I'm seeing is it's hard for them to say, "This is me." And
I can understand that completely, and you and I have two totally different perspectives. I mean, you are teaching in that group setting, and to me, that's so much harder as a teacher to do, and as a student too, because as a student, you're going to have that peer pressure all around you, where one-on-one, I get to work with these students, and even the most closed-off student, even the most isolated, quiet student, the student that won't even talk to their parents, even after you give me 2 years with that student, eventually they'll start talking in lessons with me, because listen to me, I can't stop talking. They're going to have to say something sooner or later, like I initiate conversation with these kids. And at a certain point in time, they feel comfortable opening up with their taste and what music they want to learn and what they're open to. So they're going to be much more willing to do that in the comfort of a one-on-one lesson with an instructor that they trust than in a group setting where everyone's listening to their answer and could be tweeting about it literally on the lunch break. Did you hear Johnny said he likes the new Billie Eilish song? Oh my God. Like, they never have to worry about that with me. So I could imagine that a lot more actual, personalities are going to come out in a one-on-one lesson than with a group lesson, in a group teaching environment like what you're expressing. So I understand that. I could see that perspective completely, that people don't want to talk about what they like because they're afraid they're going to get made fun of. I mean, that's what I would say. They're afraid they're going to get made fun of. And man, you pick the wrong team and you're going to get made fun of incessantly. That's the whole year. Yeah,
it is risky, especially when you're, being that age. You don't even know who you are really yet anyway. I mean, I think back to when I was that age. I'm sure I would be exactly like they are now.
Yeah. I remember deciding to be like going into freshman year being like, oh, I think I'm going to be like a goth kid. Like, that's what I'm going to be. Like, not who am I? Not like,
try this on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it took me 1 year, half of my freshman year to be like, this sucks. The coolest people I see don't fit into any group. And so I'm going to stop fitting into a group. So I'm glad I figured that out when I did.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely a time of experimentation. But I'm glad to hear that you're seeing that in the one-on-one, because I'll get that maybe like after class, they'll be like, "Oh, that was cool to put that song on," or
It's really I get it too. Now that you say it, it's just obvious to me. Like it's so liking something is so vulnerable when you're a kid. The coolest thing you can do when you're a kid is just apathy. There's nothing cooler than not caring. You know, the insult try hard is a common insult amongst kids. Like you're a try hard, like that's a bad thing. You don't want to be caught trying hard. And I get it. I bet, we were all kids. I get that attitude. So I'm not going to blame any kid that's just going to be a little bit more reserved because he doesn't want to have to deal with all that garbage that's going to be thrown at him. So it's a real thing. I get it, and it's just, I don't know if that's going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, no, I mean,
crappy high school kids, I think that'll always exist,
Yeah, well, you're so vulnerable and hurt, and the power, you want power, right? So
yeah.
One way you can show that you have power is like, I can make that kid feel bad.
Exactly. Exactly.
Power.
And I hate to say it, but a lot of, kids, it took me a long time to realize it, but a lot of those kids that acted that way in school were just kids that were being treated that way at their home, literally. And like, okay, this is the way they have to, and so it makes a lot of sense, as you get older, but at the time it's a lot harder to accept. So
yeah,
if I can encourage, like that's why I think one-on-one lessons has been it's such a blessing and a privilege for me to have taught one-on-one, and it's just it's solved so many problems. And when I do group lessons, I have fun doing it. But when I'm done, it's like, okay, I'm glad that I teach one-on-one. It's a lot more to work with when you're dealing with a group of kids. That whole social dynamic, especially at a certain age, it's like, okay, I can't handle this. When you got, after it gets 4 kids that are like 11 to 13, there's that whole like hive mind thing that starts growing in front of you. You're like, oh, geez, I don't even know. I can't deal with this,
Yeah, it's a social experience,
Yeah.
When you go to school, that's your whole life.
Right.
It's your whole social. At least I go to work. My social life isn't on the line.
Yeah.
But that it is at every moment for them.
Yep. Yeah.
But I guess they've been doing that a long time. There's the lyric from Hey Jude, "Don't make the world colder. Play it cool by making the world colder." What was it? Don't play it cool by making the world colder, a little bit colder. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But that's like a way to do it. Like push things away. And, oh man, he's so cool. Nothing bothers him.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be that way, especially in high school. Oh yeah, I don't care. No, I don't like anything. Yeah. I'm just a heartless and soulless robot. Like that's cool. They think of like Neo in the Matrix, just like sunglass. Actually, that's probably too old.
I had to explain that
reference
recently.
to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized. Yeah, that's like saying Citizen Kane. They're probably what's a Matrix? Yeah.
Yep. No, it is literally like 2 weeks ago that came up.
Oh boy, don't tell me that.
You don't want to know some of the things
that'll make you feel so old.
You know what? Today, I was listening to television in my class, 1977 album, and just like in between periods, I'll have some music on, and sometimes it's nice to just see like the kids, like you can talk to them about that and stuff. But this kid came up to me, he's like, "Since you're playing old music, can you put on Nirvana, All Apologies?" And I'm like,
no.
Old music. I had to laugh. I had to tell him, like, I was your age when this came out.
No.
It's so funny to hear you say that because I would have been about that age with that music that I was listening to earlier. So, yeah.
Come on. Can't old music just be like phonograph? Like, no. Can't it always mean like swing from the 20s? Like,
2015 is old music. 2015. Everything gets old much faster these days.
Some things get old really fast, like Gangnam Style. It's old fast. Like that feels like it's 2001. Like Gangnam, and what is it? Maybe like, but I'm sure it's not 2001. But Gangnam Style feels like it's 20 years ago. Just because maybe I heard it a trillion times. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. It was a little more recent, but I think like things are turning over so fast. Even as artists, like they've got to put out music almost constantly, and
right.
Otherwise, you're kind of forgotten about after the normal album cycle of a band in the past, like a year or two. Like you can't do that anymore.
There's a question for you. Do you like the album cycle, or do you think we should just transition over to singles? Like I don't care ever about buying an album ever unless a band is like, "Hey, I want to make you an album."
Yeah.
And let's face it, not a lot of bands care about doing that anymore. Like some bands want a whole cohesive experience, but if you're a band and I like your music and you make like just give me singles whenever you want, and I'm going to be so much happier within that than waiting for you to like put everything together in a big package. You know, unless you're like you want to do like a concept album where it's got to have art and everything. I don't know. I kind of promote, like I would be a big fan of like let's just do more singles. Like we don't need albums anymore. I know that's sacrilege, but you know, to some people.
Well, I think there's a distinction, right? Like, is it just a collection of new songs, or is it like that experience? Are we going for that album experience? You know, then yeah, the album is great. But if it's just a collection of songs, then yeah, why not? Why not just leak them out little by little? You know?
Like as an independent, I'm not really an independent artist, but I mean, I've released music and it's under my name, so. But I'll never have like an album of my stuff because it's always different. Like I do a jazz, like a funk song, I do a techno song, I do a metal song, and if it's just under Jake Lizzio, that's all you're going to get from me. If you happen to be unfortunate enough to have subscribed to me on Spotify, you don't know what you're going to get. My last song was a lo-fi hip-hop song. Before that, it was an 80s butt metal song, like, you know, like AC/DC. I mean, those are as far apart as you can get. So I have no success as an independent artist because I don't. But you know, the people that do like the stuff that I do, they can just listen to my singles as they drip out. But I don't know. It's just a weird. I have a lot of students that say, "Oh, I want to make an album," and I just kind of want to tell them from now on, just make singles. I kind of want to tell them that, but I don't know if I should have I don't know if it's good advice to tell them. You know.
Well, if you're trying to keep up, you know, you know, you got to post, you got to be showing up. You're so easily forgotten. The next thing is up. There's so much noise.
Yeah.
Well, do you feel that way about like your videos? Is there like a certain like amount of time you feel like you need to?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So like, let's put it this way. I'm supposed to be uploading 3 times a week. That's what I'm supposed to do. But I can't do that for many reasons. One, like ultimately I want it so at any point in time in the future, even 10 years down the line, if you click on the Signals Music Studio YouTube channel, then every one of those videos is like a well-cooked 9-course meal. They're all like perfectly produced. They're not like, I don't want to have a lot of filler in there. I don't want to have a video that does like, you know, 5,000 subscriber special. I did that when I got 5,000 subscribers. Okay. Hey, thanks for 5,000 subscribers. I don't ever want to do that again. It's just like nobody wants to see that. That's for me. Like that's for like a few fans that really care. Like I can email them personally instead. Like I just want that to be like an encyclopedia. Think about the Library of Alexandria, but for music theory, where every one of those videos you can click on and you know you're not going to get spammed with ads. You know I'm not going to tell you to buy a bunch of stuff. You know that I'm not going to rant about what I had for breakfast. You know it's just going to be boom, 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 boom. And like to make a bunch of videos like that means that I kind of have to spread them out across time. I can't make 3 of those a week. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if I decide to make more content, I'm probably going to have to do it on a different channel because that way I can make content that doesn't, you know, pollute my library, as I would call it.
Yeah.
But certainly I don't want to go a month without posting. And I've done that before. It was recently with that harmonic minor video that was over a month to get that one out. And I hate doing that. I really hate doing it. But I'm also not going to start posting just to please the algorithm. I'm not going to start churning crap out just to make the algorithm happy. And I'll suffer the consequences. Like YouTube will drop my recommendations, and obviously the revenue doesn't come in as well. But I'm willing to risk that because I have Patreon supporters. You know, they for whatever reason, they said, Jake, we like what you're doing. We're going to pay you every month, $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. And because of them, I don't feel the need to push content out every day and every week. And some people say, you know, might say like I should feel that obligation, but I'm sorry, I don't. I have an obligation to make the best lesson I possibly can. And sometimes that takes a week. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks. Sometimes it takes 6 weeks. So,
Well, that's a good like guiding light to have though, to think about your work as something that'll withstand the test of time and you can go back. And I found it myself, you know, looking at what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it came out last month or today or 2 years ago.
My earliest lessons are a little shaky. You'll notice like if you go way back to my beginning lessons, I was posting twice a week because my lessons were like 6 minutes of no editing, just me in front of a camera ranting at you. So those ones I don't quite consider as potent as like, you'll see where it shifted, where I realized, oh, I could I don't have to make these guitar lessons. I can make these presentations. Like I realized I'm on a computer. I realized I have editing. I realized I could do audio afterwards. And that's when that's when they became real potent lessons, in my opinion. So at that point, and I just want to keep that going forever. That is my goal, is to just make that like a nice, a nice repository forever. So any kid who turns 16 and just picked up the guitar and types in music theory, I want them to find that channel. Not the one that's trying to sell them a bunch of courses, not the one that's trying to convince them to buy a bunch of products, that's telling them to buy a bunch of apps, not the one that's telling them that they need to learn. No, like I want them to find that, and they can just do whatever they want then, and hopefully it's well explained enough where they can get all that resources out of it.
Well, I guess it probably takes a little time for you to figure that out, though. You kind of have to go through that period to understand, because I think most people say this too with their content or with what they're producing. Like, if you go back to my early stuff, before I really knew what I was going for, before I had that like kind of like compass for myself.
Yeah.
Something's off.
I just didn't. I mean, there's so many things that were off. If you look at my old videos, I'm not teaching like I would in real life. I'm a smiley, talkative, happy, humorous. I try to be humorous in real life in lessons. But if you look at my early videos, it's just me like gaunt and serious and staring at the camera and just being very serious about everything. And I don't know why. I don't know. And then I realized like I need to learn to talk in front of a camera. And then you just imagine there's a student behind the camera, and then it changed everything. Like, and you'll see in my videos where that shift happened, where I remembered I should be talking to a student instead of talking to a camera. And then just like, the tricks, I have so much fun, doing audio in the background that helps assist a concept, or I'm playing a scale and then a chord will fade into the background so you can hear the harmony of that, or, doing like a doubled guitar on the sides of the speakers. Like, it's just fun now. I get to make these fun, like, presentations, not just a lesson. So when you get fun, like that's my favorite thing is like I get into the video I'm working on right now. It keeps growing. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I had a simple idea. Oh, I'll do a thing on musical drones, right? Just like sustained notes. Oh, that'll be a simple video. I say this every time. That'll be a simple video. And then all of a sudden, today I finally filmed the guitar solo. It's a 1.5 minute guitar solo that uses 6 different scales in like a minute and 15 seconds. It's like every 8 beats, it's a brand new scale. And like I had to write all these leads. And that's only one of the 4 musical examples that the video will need. I planned on having no musical examples, but like I get into this and I get obsessed and I want it to be, it's just like a song. When you get on a song, I want to put a solo right there. And, I want it to fade out. That's how videos are now for me. So I'm not going to rush it. I'm going to make it till I get my song right, And hey, like if you're a band, your fans are going to say, release the song now when it's not ready. So if I have video fans, then they're not telling me to release my video when it's not ready. They're telling me to wait till it's done and release it. That's what I'm going to do.
Nice.
It's just terrifying because, it's just terrifying to watch your numbers. I try not to look at the numbers, but it would be a lot more easier for my sanity if I posted every week, but it would be a lot worse for the quality of my content. How about that?
Well, I think you're making the right choice there.
I think I am. I'm happy with the choice I'm making.
There's enough pollution on the internet, and it's out there. So I think
I'm trying to do something different. I started that channel by trying to do something different, and I don't want it to become the same as everybody else's channel. So the quickest way to do that would be start posting content 3 times a week and do reaction videos.
I'm brushing my teeth today, and I.
Yeah, exactly. How's my diet? Okay, let's talk about my diet on my live stream. Like, come on, nobody cares. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to teach music. All right.
So let me ask you: do you have any favorite guitar players? Any inspirations?
Favorite guitar players? Let's go back. The reason I play guitar is because of Kirk Hammett. I would say that. That's the reason I played. I wanted to play the guitar solo from Disposable Heroes. And I heard that solo when I was, and just like, Blackened, the guitar solo for Blackened. Now, that trend only lasted for a few years. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to be Kirk Hammett. I want to be John Petrucci from Dream Theater. And that lasted quite a few years. I had quite a few years where that's all I wanted to be. And then later on in high school, I started getting into like Pink Floyd and hippie music. So like Fish, Grateful Dead, Pink Floyd, and Fish specifically. Trey Anastasio was like one of if I could improvise like anybody, I would improvise like Trey. What he does on stage makes me cry. I want to play guitar like Trey, and I can't. And I don't think I'll ever be able to play like him before I die. And that makes me sad. But there's other things I'll be able to do that make me happy. But I really wish I could just do what Trey does. So those would probably be my biggest influences as far as like, this is why I play and this is what I want to sound like. But, as soon as you learn a guitar solo, I've learned George Harrison solos. Those are with me forever. I feel like it's like just mind melding with somebody, like a Vulcan, like they're in you forever. Once you learn their solo, you know what they were thinking, you know why they did it, So Mark Knopfler, like I feel like I've kind of got Mark Knopfler because I've learned some of his solos. Santana, like all those things are in me because Jimmy Page, you can't not let it influence you. You are what you eat. And if you're eating those solos, that's what you become. You know what I mean? So if you listen to my playing, you'll probably hear John Petrucci, Kirk Hammett, and David Gilmour. That's probably what you'll hear. I don't think I have a unique sound. I don't hear myself and think that sounds like Jake. You know what I mean? And maybe one day I'll get there. I think it's going to take a lot more years to get that unique style. Because that's what I always look for. You want to sound like a person. You want to sound like somebody could hear you immediately. Oh, they know that's Carlos Santana. That's the goal, is to have that kind of style. I don't have it yet. Maybe one day.
Well, I would say a lot of those people have that. You kind of George Harrison, like
Yeah.
you can almost just tell.
You can just tell.
Santana has that touch.
And I'm just happy to say, I'm comfortable saying I'm not, experienced or wise or good enough to have that style. I'm still emulating, I'm still learning. I'm still copying what the great people did before me. Pardon me for not thinking I'm as good as George Harrison, like I think it's just being honest. Like we're not all George Harrison. We're not all Jimi Hendrix. We're not all going to create that style. So the best thing you can do is try to emulate it and then maybe go from there. And that's still where I'm at. And I'm happy with that. It's taken me a long way, just that attitude has taken me a far way.
Well, I think a lot of guitarists say that sort of thing, though. Their style is, well, it's really just a little bit of this and a little bit of that thrown together, and you kind of mess up your emulation in your own personal way, and that sort of becomes what you sound like.
I just think the easy thing is take your favorite guitar player and then find out all the crap that you hate they do and just stop doing that. That's really easy for me. Because even my favorite musicians, I'm very critical. I'm extremely critical, even of my favorite music. I can find flaws in everything, especially my own stuff. But the music I love, it's really easier for me to be like, oh, come on. Why were you doing that? Come on. Like John Petrucci, I love John Petrucci. Do you know how many times I face-palmed during his guitar solos? Where it's like, come on. You could have kept it just awesome, and then you decided to put in too much shred there, like you just too much salt. You oversalted my frittata, okay? And so if you can spot that, then maybe it's easy to say, okay, I want to do what John Petrucci does, but with less of that. I like what Kirk Hammett does, but I get annoyed how he's just using his wah pedal on every single solo. So I'm gonna not do that. Like you just you take the good and you leave the bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think some of those guys get a pass, I think if you're John Petrucci, you got to sort of show everyone a little bit, if he can.
Let's put it this way. If I was John Petrucci, I'd be doing that too.
Yeah.
But when I hear certain things,
Yeah.
It's like, when it annoys me, it annoyed me really. Like I really wanted to hear you play so slow there. I know you can shred, John, and I wish I could shred like you. Every day I wake up and I wish I could shred like you. But in that moment, I really was hoping you would play something slow, and you didn't, and it annoyed me.
Well, cool. That's how you do it, right?
Yeah. Well, you don't ever want to be too much of a fanboy. You don't want to. Nobody does everything perfectly. There's always room for improvement. Even the people that I idolize that have altered my path forever, that are the reason I'm here. It's not like they did it perfectly. Come on, there's always room for improvement. Always, always, always. And everything I'm doing with my videos, there's room for improvement. Somebody can take my video content and do it better. I believe that 100%. So there's no perfect figure to emulate.
That might be the hope for human musicians, right? Because a lot of those imperfections are the character, the personality. We might be able to write that out of AI music. and I've found in my own productions a lot of when I think back to like, oh man, if I could only have the drums be perfectly in time, and if I could have a million tracks, and if I could just get my vocals tuned, and once I was able to do that, I was like, oh my God, my music has no soul.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I've edited out all the character. It was really eye-opening for me especially with the drums, when I put them on the grid for the first time, and I was like, but why is this wrong? I see it's right, but that stuff is where that feeling comes in or something. So
here's this is a really interesting topic in my opinion, because like I remember once I tried to take my drummer and quantize him onto the grid, and I just hated it because of all the artifacts. I kept getting all those quantization artifacts where it stretched out wrong, and it was time consuming, and like to do it right, I was like, why? Like I don't like any of this. Basically, is what it came down to. Is I don't know why anybody would do this when we could just have him record it on time. We could just do a better track, right? And so I didn't think that quantizing a decent track to the grid was a thing. I don't know. Like I thought that like I didn't know producers did like. I don't know why a producer would do that. And then I started getting these comments on my YouTube channel like, the click track is killing rock and roll. That's what people were telling me, because I told them like it's really helpful to learn to record to a click. And I couldn't figure out like, what are you talking about? Like lots of rock is recorded to a click. Like tons of rock is recorded to a click. Genesis, Queen's done it. So, and then I found out somebody's been on YouTube doing this. Somebody's on YouTube is like taking drum tracks and just throwing them on the quantize meter, which I don't understand. This isn't a practice, I thought. Like, is it? Like, I don't know about producing, but what... Is this common practice? Like, let's take a good drummer who's done a good thing and then quantize them? I would never do that. And I can't imagine why anybody would. And the idea that like, oh, this is killing rock music. Like, maybe somebody's experimenting with it. Maybe like, oh, I'm going to experiment with and try it. But I don't think this is a thing, is it? Like, you could maybe help me out with that?
Well, yeah, I think most of what we're hearing these days is fixed and polished and quantized. And
on the drum set? I mean, I would see it either being programmed onto the grid, or I could see it being a real drummer that they just let drum. But I can't imagine taking I'm really curious, like, are they taking real drummers and then like, why would they just program the drums at that point?
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation, of course, but it happens,
Yeah.
And I kind of, I'm with you, that's why we have a drummer. We have the samples, we can do it.
Right. Or if it needs to be perfect, like it's a techno song, we'll just program it.
Yeah. And in that case, it makes more sense, but like a rock band, you would think.
Yeah, I don't see, even for a prog band, like just play your part correctly. And now we don't have to quantize you. Like that's the answer. That's the good producer's answer, in my opinion. Like we're in the studio, right? We're producing music, right? Play your part on time. Like, sorry, like that's what good drummers do. And I've played with good drummers and that's what they do. And I've played with bad drummers and they don't play their parts on time.
Well,
I don't know.
Then those tools become really handy. But it is nice to be able to, sometimes verse 1 just grooves a little better than verse 2 for whatever reason. And you can just put that over there.
Yeah. Well, I've done that. I mean, I've certainly edited drums together. And I will say this, I've used Melodyne, believe it or not, if it's a simple groove, you can use Melodyne as like as a rhythm quantizer, but just like 12%, 15%, it was just a little tiny, like, okay, you're playing the part, but there's just some little slop in there. It's just enough for me to notice it. So let's see if we can just, do like a 20% quantize to pitch grid and see what happens. And it's just enough to make me not hear it. And that's all I look for. If I can hear it, I want to get rid of it. That's my production rule. If I notice it, I need to fix it,
Yeah. I think the quantized percentage is a great thing. Like, when I was first doing it, it was always 100%. Yeah, I don't even remember having the option. But
on pitch correction too. That's how I do. I'm like bloop, just turn the knob all the way up.
But yeah, sometimes like if I'm doing like MIDI finger drumming, to just maybe quantize that 50%. It's like you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get that like feel, and you get that. This is more what you meant to do.
I would like to see more AI quantization features like that, because I read an interesting study on drummers who have fractal variation patterns in their dynamics of their hi-hat playing. So when a drummer is playing a hi-hat groove all the way through their song, they're obviously varying their dynamics, but they're not doing it consistently. But they are doing it chaotically consistently. Like, at least that's what this one paper said. Now, whether any of this is true or not, whether this is just complete nonsense, I don't know. But I feel like that there's an easy option there for like generative quantization that isn't just 60%, isn't just 50%, but like and also mixing that quantization with velocity dynamics. So not only is it quantizing my drums, but it's also reducing the accents. It's also making some of these hits louder and softer, but it's doing them smart, like a real drummer would, and actually analyzing the deeper nuances of how drummers groove and being able to put that in. I would love something like that, because I do program drums a lot since I don't drum and since I don't want to always task my drummer for doing drum parts. And, I hate to say it, but a lot of times fake drums are good enough for what I do. It would be nice to have them sound better, though, with some AI dynamics, AI groove, I bet that'll sound pretty good pretty soon.
You're a Ableton Live user, right? So
yeah.
You use that in the videos. Have you explored the groove pool much?
The only thing I use the groove pool for, and I say this is like what I discovered it for, is I'll extract the groove of... So if I want to trigger my drummer's kick drum, right? I don't like the way the kick drum's recorded. So I'll like heavily gate my kick drum, and then I'll render that whole file out as a wave. Then I'll extract the groove of that wave, and it gives me like just the transients of when the kick drum hit.
Right.
Then I'll just use that to sample some kick drums that I have from Reason or something like that. So it's a long, convoluted process.
So you use that to grab like a MIDI kick drum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
That's funny. I was I'm working on some tracks with some guys I'm playing with now, and I want to emphasize the drums with some samples. And I didn't think of doing it that way, actually. The way I did it was using the drums to MIDI that they have. So
I tried that, and I don't know what it's doing. I look at it, it's like, what did you... Like, it shows me all this stuff on the screen. I'm like, I didn't want all this. I just wanted one note. I wanted, like, just a transient, like a C on every time that kick drum hit.
Yeah. So that makes sense. It estimates basically like a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat based on the audio you give it. So it'll
weird.
give you... So I have a separate kick drum mic, and even though it's mostly kick drum, it's still hearing other stuff, and it's assuming those are the snares and the hi-hat. So it gives me a whole bunch of other crap on top, and I just delete that and just use the kick. Your way is a good way too, though.
It just takes a long time, and for some reason you get little glitches in there, because if you're heavy gating that signal, then for whatever reason, it'll produce the transient a millisecond earlier or later. So what I'll do is I'll use it to blend in with my original signal. So now I've got this, this MIDI that's just where my kick drum hit. It's playing a kick drum. I blended that with my original kick drum signal, but every 10th kick drum, I hear like a flam. What the hell is that? And for some reason, the MIDI populated that signal just a microsecond too late. So it's a giant pain going in there and audibly fixing every single kick drum that wasn't populated correctly. And there must be a better way to do it. I know there's a better way to do it. I just haven't researched it, and I haven't spent any money. It's just a very tedious way to do it. But sometimes it works perfect right out of the box, It's the way I've always done it, though. And I'll do it for snare, too. And usually I use, like, a blend of both of them. Usually I'll use, like a sampled kick that has nice, really good low end and like some high end snap, or, I'll use just one of them for the high end or just one of them the low end, but you can usually get a good sound just by layering them, and it doesn't sound robotic. You still get the dynamics of my actual drummer, and you've got this triggered sample that just comes in fine.
Yeah, it's a little more oomph in there.
Right. Right. And I mean, we're recording in, very amateur environments. That's one thing I learned. I will never get my drums sounding good I'll just never do it. I need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to record drums and have them sound good with no processing. And I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a drum studio. So like, in lieu of that, let's just get as good of a signal as we possibly can and then do everything in post, and that's where I'm at. I do everything in post.
Yeah, I chalk that same thinking up to the character. That's the personality, because of course, like, I'm in my basement, I've got a washing machine and dryer behind my drum set, so it's part of the sound,
Yeah, exactly.
But I brought up the groove pool because you can, it's an amazing tool because it's like sampling the feel of a drummer. So like you get those MIDI notes from your kick drum. If you do that with a whole drum file, it takes those MIDI notes and you can apply the groove to the clip, and it does move your audio files. It's like instead of quantizing to the grid, it's quantizing to the transients of the audio file that you extracted the groove from.
Weird. Now, when you say what do you do with it's like, how do you get something into the groove pool? You just do the extract groove, or are you talking turn into drums, that little feature where you right click?
No, I'm talking about extract groove.
Okay.
So I've done it on like Aerosmith Walk This Way, the opening.
Yeah.
And
right.
I isolate that little part, and I just, you like the groove. And when you look at it, he's not on the grid, He's early, he's late, he's all over the place.
Yes.
But in a good way. And you extract that, and it creates a MIDI file, and it's just one note, and it's marking the transients.
Okay. Of just of everything that's happening.
Everything
the whole
that's
kit.
happening. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And just one note. So if you were to drag that on a MIDI clip, you would see a MIDI clip with just the notes, which I'm thinking is what you're doing with the kick drum.
Right.
So what you can do with that is tell Live to quantize the timing of your drums, not to the grid, but to the timing of that MIDI file or that groove that you extracted from Walk This Way.
Oh, okay. Weird.
Yeah, it's like sampling the feel of a drummer. And then you can dial in like how much percentage you want of that. And
oh man, that is bizarre to think about.
It's
would they have to
cool
they'd have to
feature.
be tempo matched, right? I mean, you'd have to.
So usually what I do is I'll mark like with warp markers, like, all right, this is the first beat.
Okay.
And then I'll mark like the end of it. I don't want to put warp markers everywhere because I don't want to ruin the timing, but I'll do that, and then I'll extract the groove, and it'll give me something that when you inside the clip window, I'll send you a video I have of it to just demonstrate it. But you select the groove, and it applies it to the timing of your audio file rather than.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah,
Well,
I didn't know that was a thing.
It's actually really cool if you just hear a groove you like, drummer you like whoever, you can extract it. Or if you've done a performance yourself, you can extract your drumming groove and apply it to like your program bass line or something.
Oh yeah, no, that seems like it would be neat.
Yeah, it's just kind of like things just sort of snug together. But within that feature, there's also a randomize. So you can have it won't be exactly on. So you don't even have to use the groove at all. You can just use the randomize feature, and it'll just vary the timing. So as you were saying, the chaotic hi-hat, you can just have slight variations every once in a while.
I use for all of my MIDI, I actually use Reason. So Reason's running through Ableton through Rewire, and there's like the randomize feature in there for timing and stuff like that, which I use pretty consistently. Okay. There's also a randomize feature for velocity. It's just randomizes it though, so you don't get to it doesn't know that if I'm doing 16th notes, it wants me to literally accent every other 16th note. But the other thing I got on Reason recently, and I used it in my last track, was generative. Oh, I think it was called Evolution. I don't know. It was a generative, purely like chaotic random patterns, and it's supposed to be for like melody. It's supposed to, you put a piano patch in there, synth patch in it, and it just generates these sequences, completely random sequences, but different lengths, and it repeats. So my friend Moogly was doing it and like playing around with the program. Like, that seems like it would be a lot of fun. But I bought it for rhythm because I had this lo-fi song and I wanted a sloppy hi-hat back there that had no predictability. I already had sloppy hi-hats that were off the grid. I had stuff that was before the beat. I had all these cool tricks in there, but I wanted something else. And so I just tweaked the settings until I found something. And sure enough, this hi-hat just comes in at the dumbest moments. And it's never like bad, but it's never good. Okay. You're never like, ooh, that was a tasty thing. It's always just like clunk. But that's what I needed. I really needed like an extra element of just sloppiness there. And it was outside of my human ability. So through the whole song, it's called 17 Days. It was one of the tracks I made for YouTube. I made this video producing lo-fi, and then the song I made was 17 Days. You'll just hear it back there. It's funny. It's a really funny hi-hat to listen to because it's unpredictable. You'll never be able to guess when that little thing is going to happen. And I like that kind of stuff. It's fun. That's where AI is very helpful. Here's something AI can do that I can't do. I cannot be random. I can pretend, I can try, but I won't do it. I live by rules whether I like it or not. But that thing is far more random than me. So,
yeah, that's a good use of it. The human behind the artificial intelligence and knowing when to put it. Because
I'm a big fan of technology, especially as a musician. That's all it's going to do is help us execute our ideas easier. So if you have ideas in your head, that's all technology is doing, is aiding in the facilitation of these things. They're being born now because I have technology, because I have pitch correction, because I have Melodyne, because I have internet, because I have YouTube. All that stuff is helping me facilitate my interpretation of art. So I will always be a fan of it. I will never buy this argument that technology is like ruining musicians. Hell, if you gave me a helmet that just went directly into my brainstem and just played you the music that I was hearing in my head, cool. Now people that didn't even have to, now you don't even have to practice. Now I can hear your music. I think that's good. That is I don't see a problem with that. I really don't. So sign me up. Stick the fork in my brain, and you can hear what's going on in my head. It's beautiful melodies all day long.
Yeah, that's cool, and it would be a tool.
They're all in Phrygian.
I think it's a good. Yeah, oh boy. I think it'd be a cool. Why would you resist it anyway? It's going to happen.
Yeah, precisely.
And you look at the Beatles. I'm sure would have jumped on all of this stuff too.
Precisely.
They did in their time. They were always looking for the new thing.
Yeah, do you think they were like, no, we want to record on wax cylinders because that's authentic? No, they said we want to use the latest and greatest technology possible, all right? And when I record, I want to use the best I can. I don't say, I need to record on vinyl because that's the way No, I don't have to, there's all sorts. The original music was recorded on steel cylinders, okay? Like music boxes.
Yeah.
We want to go back. How far do we got to go back? Before then? Okay, come on. When do we cut the line of what is authentic music production and what isn't? Where do we draw that line? I don't draw it at all. Just keep making music. I don't care what technology you use.
Yeah, there's a meme going around somewhere where it's I used to think using presets was bad, so I designed my own patches. Then it's then I thought using a synthesizer someone else created was bad, so I designed my own synthesizer. By the end of it, he's herding goats so he can get his own drum skins.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, man. I'm right there with that argument.
Yeah, so...
The only thing I would say is, if you're going to claim to be a singer, and if you're going to market yourself as a singer and a great vocalist, and if you're relying heavily on pitch correction in a studio, now I say, okay, there's some dishonesty going on here. There's some deception going on here. Now I'm not a fan. If you are a guitar instructor and you teach people how to shred, and you're telling everybody you're going to teach them how to shred, and you act like this virtuoso, and you're faking your guitar parts in the studio, I have a problem with that. Now we're getting into dishonesty. We're getting into, but if you're just saying, if you're just making music, I don't care if you speed it up. I don't care if you Melodyne it. I don't care if every bit of it is fake. I really don't care. I just care about how it sounds when it hits my ears. But there's that other element of it. There is a person behind this that's marketing it. And if they're marketing it dishonestly and portraying themselves as something, that just rubs me the wrong way. I don't agree with it. I don't endorse stuff like that. Fortunately, that's pretty rare. That doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. Well, you don't like liars. That's a different thing.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't like competition. I lie too much, so I got to make sure that, I guess that's what it is,
Right. That's funny. Well, listen, man, you've been super generous with your time. I don't want to keep you all night. But I do want to give everyone a chance to check out your work. So we've got, of course, Signals Music Studio on YouTube.
That's the name, yep. And you can go to a website by the same title, signalsmusicstudio.com, which does have some stuff that my YouTube doesn't have, but it's really just a repository for my YouTube videos. On my website, I do have a music theory course. I know I've been talking this whole time about, not selling people stuff, but I did spend 1,000 hours and literally over a year making the greatest music theory course I could possibly make for people to get them to where I'm at, to get them confident and making music. So if you're interested in that, that's on there. Also read the FAQ because I know not everybody can afford that course. So I've been happily providing it for people that can't afford it. So, if that's something that your viewers are interested in is learning theory the way I think it should be taught, it's a 9-hour course. Nice. There's 45 lessons in there. There's tons of PDFs. It should keep you busy for a very, very, very long time. So that's basically what I've got going on the internet is Signals Music Studio, the YouTube, and then my website. That's about it. I am on Twitter. I'm on Signals, Signals_music. I'm on Instagram, but I'm just not very active on there. I feel that social media is kind of bad for my brain, but one day I'll get on there. Maybe I'll get like a person to do it for me. So you'll see me on there, pop in and out.
Oh, that's cool. And I think we should also just mention the Patreon. You get people check
yeah,
that
that's
out.
right.
It's a great way to support what you're
Patreon,
doing.
the reason.
Yeah.
Those are the people, they're the reason my lessons exist. So if you've ever seen my lessons, like Brian, like you've said, the appreciation does go to my Patreon support. Like they are the people that have decided, hey, this needs to exist. And legitimately, if I say it at the end of my videos, if it was not for them, I would not be making free lessons. There's just no way you can afford it. There's no way you can afford.
I mean,
I'm going to dedicate 100 hours to making a free lesson for the world and not get paid. They've decided that I should get paid for that. So like I give them all the credit in the world. They're great people.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So,
you're putting in
Patreon.com.
like full-time job hours on this stuff. So,
Yeah. Right.
you gotta, to get the
So I owe
quality
'em.
there takes time.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. It's good stuff. I really do appreciate it. And I honestly mean it when I say like your channel is one of my favorites on the entire platform. I love it. I enjoy it. I look forward to everything you put out, and I've learned a ton.
Thank you.
And I've been able to put it to good use myself. And
Good, man. Well, I really appreciate you having me on here, and yeah, I hope my future lessons are as helpful to you as my past lessons have been.
they will. I don't know if I'm gonna be using that. What was it, like the Dorian Sharp something? I don't even remember what it's called.
Super Locrian double flat 7.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, you're not a real musician then. Sorry.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm gonna have to just.
you haven't made
that.
it. Clearly. Yeah, you're just gonna have to accept it. Once you come back to me once you've mastered your ultra Locrian scale, and then we can talk.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. Well, don't hold your breath. But cool. But Jake, thanks so much, man.
Of course.
And
thank you.
Check it out, everybody. Signalsmusic.com and on YouTube. I'm sorry, signalsmusicstudio.com.
That's it.
And then the same on YouTube. And I'll put the
got
links in the show notes. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.